Welcome to SportsBeat KC, the sports podcast of the Kansas City Star and KCUR. It's Tuesday, October 28th, and I'm Blair Kirchhoff. The Chiefs keep rolling. They polished off the Washington Commanders 28-7 on Monday Night Football for their third straight victory and fifth in the last 6 games. It also sets them up nicely for a showdown on the road Sunday against the Buffalo Bills. On today's show, we break down Monday's game and look ahead to this weekend with Chiefs beat writer Pete Sweeney. Hello, Pete.
Hello. How's it going?
Not bad.
All right.
Columnist Sam McDowell. Sam.
How's it going?
It's going, man. Good to have you here. And Vahe Gregorian. How you doing, Vahe?
He's back.
Hello, Blair. Hi, Pete.
Hi,
Sam.
The Dark Knight returns.
After a break, Sam and Vahe will stick around to discuss the big events in college football last week. The news was good for Kansas State, not so much for Kansas and Missouri, not to mention a bunch of coaches who have recently been fired. And then I'll tell you what's on my radar in Kansas City sports this week. Pete, I thought 2 big developments from the Washington game. First, the return of the candy dispenser to the press box.
Delicious.
And then the play of the Chiefs in the second half. What did you see?
In that order.
Right. I did weigh myself this morning. I don't know if it was that or the post-game town topic, but I got to eat some salad today. The second half was completely different than the first half. This projected as a game. I remember talking in one of the hits that I do of this was a mismatch. I mean, starting with the quarterback. You had Patrick Mahomes versus Marcus Mariota. You had Washington, who was a little banged up, especially at the defensive end position. They were getting the receivers back, but as you saw, eventually Terry McLaurin, who looked fantastic, would have to leave the game late. And so really, if the Chiefs were going to lose at home in prime time where they play well, it would be from mistakes. And they made them. They made him early in the game. You saw Patrick Mahomes throw 2 interceptions, one that was his fault. It seemed like he was forcing it. And then Travis Kelce with another pop-up pick. And so that stood out on defense. It was bend but not break. You saw a lot of the second level attacking of the linebackers, which led to a lot of the explosive plays that Washington had in this game. Go into the locker room, and it seemed like everything was fixed. The defense made adjustments. The Chiefs played clean football. And that led to what was a 21-0 run in the second half. And those Chiefs in the second half look a lot closer to what we've seen over the last few games. Whereas I think the first half Chiefs look closer to what we saw in the first few games of the season. And so they get the win, they move on. I think the lesson here, and you kind of heard it from the players, is we can't have that first half against Buffalo or we're going to lose.
Last 10 quarters, something pretty remarkable for the Chiefs. Right? Second half of the Lions, the shutout last week against the Raiders, and of course the 28-7 victory over Washington. Vahe, it has been impressive to say the least. Look, the Raiders are the Raiders. Lions had a couple of injuries, and we know that Washington played without starting quarterback Jane Daniels. So maybe there's some asterisks by this, but Chiefs can't be any happier than what we've seen the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think let's see, it's basically 1 touchdown in about the last 9 quarters, right?
I think it's 2 in that 10 quarters.
Yeah, 13, 14 left in the Lions game. So it pretty good. And it was not flawless defense last night at all. And Washington has been prone to turnovers, and the Chiefs, produced one, including, as you wrote about, Blair, Mike Dana. Have we got that right yet? Mike Dana or Dana?
I believe it's Dana. Dana's right, I believe.
And yet
But the pronunciation guy may say Dana.
Right, and yet we continue to hear both.
Blair's asking the questions here.
Yeah. Well, I'm questioning myself. So anyway, it couldn't happen to a nicer guy, for one thing. He's a pleasant guy in the locker room, and I think you come away feeling more reinforced overall about what's starting to happen with their numbers, which is right now they're a top 5 offense and a top 5 defense. And we haven't seen that for several years. Yes, I know the competition is, its own question, right? But you only play who's on your schedule, and the NFL is all about guys missing essential people, including the Chiefs without 2 of their starting offensive linemen last night. So the bigger tests are coming, but you got to like just how they're playing overall right now.
Vahe, you and Sam each wrote about a catcher of the pass, right? Vahe, you wrote about Kelce, and Sam, you really, explored Rashee Rice's position on this team, and maybe a bit of a changing role for him.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it's very clear that the Chiefs' offense this year, now that Rashee Rice is back, is going to roll through him. And it's sort of a changing of the guard from the guy that Vahe wrote about, who had his best game in almost a year. And it was interesting, Vahe actually asked Rashee Rice about Travis Kelce after the game, and Rashee Rice mentioned that Kelce told him before the second half started, like, you got to get going. And what he means is, like, that the offense had 7 points. It was not playing well. They deserved 7 points, really, maybe 10. But he thought that, for the last 4 years, Travis Kelce has led this team in receiving. 6 of the last 7 years, he's led this team in receiving. And I think in most cases, when you would think of what needs to get the offense going, what can jumpstart things, you would look at Travis Kelce and the fact that he's pointing at Rashee Rice saying, this is what's going to get us going. And he's right. Like, the Chiefs got going by running through Rashee Rice. 5 of his last 6 catches were either first downs or touchdowns, the one touchdown, which was also technically a first down. It's past the first down marker. And so, like, it's becoming clear that him and Patrick Mahomes have this sort of Travis Kelce-like connection. I don't think it's that deep of a level, but the one play on the touchdown is not the intended route. It's an option route, and then he just sees that Patrick Mahomes is looking left, sees some open space there, and runs a shallow cross there. Patrick Mahomes still actually doesn't see him, and he just keeps on sprinting. Basically said, I just was trying to run into his eyesight, and he goes, if he would run to the sideline, I would have gone to the sideline too. And that was just so indicative of the connection we've seen between Kelce and Mahomes. And, it's been a couple of years that we've been saying, what are they going to do when they lose Travis Kelce? And I think we're starting to see it before they lose Travis Kelce. Like, this is how they want to run their offense.
That's a really interesting way to put it. And I thought that dynamic was pretty intriguing, and you got right into it. Especially, I thought it was notable that Rashee seemed to feel like I'm doing fine, right? Didn't he? I can't remember his exact words. But he was like, I thought I was going.
Yeah, that's what he said.
And then Travis said, well, whatever Travis said. And it's I saw Kelce, I think, last night this is what he's going to be, I think, what he can be. Obviously, they want to get rid of that wretched deflection. You can't do that.
For the second time this year.
Yeah. And listen, they had twice the amount of turnovers on 2 series back-to-back that they had all season. Or they had the exact same amount that they had all season, right? They doubled the amount of turnovers on 2 series. And just one quick other thing about Travis, just that what I think's happening now, though, and this is probably worth more exploring, but is that I don't think he's getting the emphasis that he used to get, right? So he's finding his niche that way, while we're more inclined to be thinking about the 3 amigos and what they represent. So it's the changing of the guard notion is a really cool thought that Sam had last night, I think, and it's funny how it's kind of working in tandem.
Patrick Mahomes called them Mr. Chiefs, essentially, after the game.
The true Chiefs, the
Chief. And to that point, talking with Rashee Rice, it kind of reminds you of, like, when 2 siblings and one is off to college, and you have the guy's going to go be a freshman, there's a younger sibling that's going to be at home, and look, here's where the hidden cookies are. Here's where here's where you can say to mom to get whatever you want. And I think there's something really nice about that. I mean, it's obviously something he cares about. He doesn't have a lot of time left. We think this will be his last year. If it isn't, it's probably one more after this, and he'll call it. And so I think he wants to leave his home, when he does leave, in a good spot. And I think that Rashee Rice moment is just kind of a microcosm of it.
What's incredible about Travis Kelce is he's 18 yards shy of the lead for all tight ends in the NFL. And a year that Pete's totally right. Like, I think most of us view this as Travis Kelce's last year, more likely than not. And it's because, he's 36 years old. It's because we look at his production not being what it once was, but it's been so long since we compared Travis Kelce to the rest of the league, because we've always considered him the best, and we just compare him to himself. We compared to what it was he like in 2019 and 2020, and here he is. If you do compare him to his peers, that he's as productive as any tight end in the league is right now.
Hey, this is SportsBeat KC. I'm Blair Kirchhoff here with Chiefs beat writer Pete Sweeney and star columnist Sam McDowell and Vahe Gregorian. let's spin this forward to next Sunday's game against the Buffalo Bills. Ed Oliver appears to be out for with the is it the biceps injury? The defensive lineman for the Buffalo Bills, excellent player,
Fast, yeah.
very good, and kind of another break for the Chiefs. A star player being out for this time for the Bills. I think that this, Chiefs could be in an advantage here in the running game, which I thought was very good on Monday night. Kareem Hunt especially. I thought quietly he had one of his best games in his return to the Chiefs. But how do you see the Bills shaping up, Pete?
I think what has been impressive, and you mentioned the run game coming out of this game, is the Chiefs don't really have a bell cow. They're really sharing the ball between Pacheco and Hunt. And you add Pacheco that ran at 4.8 a clip, Hunt at 4.4, 98 yards total. You avoided the dreaded Mahomes leading the team in rushing, which I think was important. And I think if you're able to establish some kind of ground game, and look, that's not Saquon CMC numbers, 150, 200 yards of rushing, but just enough where you're able to keep the other team honest in the pass game. That's where I think the Chiefs are going to run up the scoreboard and really win. And I think it has become an ongoing theme every year. State media buzzword, you're looking for a team's identity. I think this is now an explosive offense that is going to be pass first and is going to win that way. And then if you're able to get a lead, like we saw last night, you force the other team into being one-dimensional. Let's call the Chiefs defense top 10 to 15, and maybe that is the floor. That's going to be enough, if you're able to create that type of dynamic. And so this is an interesting matchup. I've noted there's this weird thing where the Chiefs seem to lose every regular season game against the Bills, but then they win in the playoffs, and they'll be really trying to curb that trend this Sunday in Buffalo.
5-4 is the Patrick Mahomes record against Josh Allen Buffalo Bills teams with, let me see if I get this right, 4-0 in the playoffs, 1-4 in the regular season, with those 4 regular season losses coming in consecutive years. Remember, the Chiefs won in the COVID year in Buffalo, nobody in the stands. The Bills have won the next 4 of those regular season games.
He hasn't lost 4 games against any team other than the Bills. He's lost 3 to the Chargers, but he's 10-3 against them. I mean, this is the team that he by far has the worst regular season success against.
So what do we think?
Does he have a losing record against anybody else in the regular season?
Yeah, the Colts he hasn't beat.
He's 0-2. Strangely enough, the team they play in 3 weeks.
The Titans, let's see, right? He got they got
1-2
drilled by the Titans one game we were there, and then he threw for almost 500 yards and his cutback from the knee injury, and they still blew that game at the end. So he's got a losing record against the Titans.
The best quarterback in our generation has an Achilles heel of the AFC South, which is one of the worst divisions.
But not in the playoffs.
And then the Eagles as well. He's got a losing record.
Okay. We were talking about the running game a second ago. Let me run these numbers by you. In the last 4 games, including last night, Chiefs are 3rd in the NFL in rushing yards, 3rd in rushing touchdowns, 11th in yards per carry at 4.7, and 5th in yards before contact, 2.05, which speaks well to the offensive line. Those are pretty impressive numbers for
Patrick Mahomes is doing a lot of the heavy lifting on that.
Yes, he is.
I mean, their running backs. Kareem Hunt has been really good in short yardage. I wrote about that last week, and he was good again Monday night in short yardage. He converted a 4th and 1 and a 3rd and 1. Isaiah Pacheco, the advanced numbers on him are not good. I mean, he's not been even a top 60 back this year, including in yards after contact, which I think a lot of people envision him as this hard runner, but he doesn't generate a lot of yards after contact. Or you mentioned the yards before contact. A lot of that's come from scrambles and Patrick Mahomes finding openings, which he did again last night. Like Pete said, he didn't lead the team in rushing, but he still had 30 yards. And so I think it could be a little misleading how successful they've been running the ball just because Patrick Mahomes has been so good at it.
I'm sorry, I don't have the numbers in front of me still, but is Patrick still the season-leading rusher? I think he is.
No, Pacheco's.
Did he pass him finally? Because I thought as of last week it was still...
No, Pacheco had him before last game, yeah.
But the Bills are 31st in rushing defense this year, speaking more to the idea that they're going to try to establish something on the ground. But James Cook, their running back, had a big game Sunday at Carolina. That's a game I thought Buffalo might have a little bit more of a struggle. Look, we know that Bryce Young didn't play. That was an Andy Dalton game for the Panthers, but the Bills blew them out of the water. A win after losing 2 straight, right? They lost to the Patriots, and who's the other team that beat?
The Falcons.
The Falcons, right.
Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say what was so impressive about that, and that's to me going to be the Chiefs' biggest concern is Cook, because Carolina had a top 10 run defense going into that game, and he rushes for over 200 yards. And yeah, I mean, that's why it was career high, but that's why I thought that would be a closer game than what it was. And you look at the Chiefs this year, and there's one spot, I mean, for all that their defense has done, I didn't think they played particularly well last night, only allowed 7 points. But on a per play basis, they've struggled against the run this year. And so to me, I mean, Josh Allen gets all this hype in Buffalo, but they've been a run first team this year. And really they were a year ago too, even when he wins MVP. And I think the Bills are going to really try and run the ball a lot.
Are the Chiefs vulnerable there?
Absolutely. I mean, so the Bills have faced, I think, like the 5th most stacked boxes in the league. Like, teams defend the run against them. Carolina defended the run against them, and you just mentioned Cook's numbers getting 216. And yeah, I mean, the Chiefs are not a team that stuffs the run a lot. And Nick Bolton has been good against the run, but as a team, I mean, Pete mentioned last week that, they need some help on the interior of their defensive line. And to me, this is where they need help more than even the pass rush.
I think what it can provide optimism, and you can't, the yards per play don't lie. They haven't had one of these elite running backs who they faced this year ruin a game. And so, can you take Cook getting 120 all-purpose yards and still win definitively? Sure, right? It'll just depend on how the game is dictated. I do want to make another point just about this game last night. Now that we're talking about maybe Buffalo's poor run defense, where was Brashard Smith? It did feel like maybe they could. I know we talk about do teams really save things, but it seemed like Brashard Smith and his usage was on the incline, and then all of a sudden sort of disappeared last night. So I wonder if he could be an X factor in this game.
He had one. Didn't he have one 10-yard run? Or maybe that was called back. Maybe there was a penalty that wiped that out.
Didn't have any targets, only finished with 3 attempts for 8 yards last night.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it must have been called back.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I thought we're going to start seeing more Brashard Smith, the running back with more breakaway speed than either Hunt or Pacheco.
Just a real quick note on this to start with the running. I mean, Pacheco did leave the game with
That's right.
injury, so we may end up seeing a little bit more of Brashard Smith. I mean, we saw him walking fine in the locker room after the game, but that hit did not look
Right. Yeah.
Well, it should be fun. One of our favorite destinations, Buffalo in Niagara Falls. Looking forward to it. Thanks, guys. Pete Sweeney, we're going to say goodbye to you.
Goodbye.
Let's take a break, and when we return, Sam McDowell and Vahe Gregorian will look at the direction of our local college teams. This is SportsBeat KC. We're back on SportsBeat KC with star columnists Sam McDowell and Vahe Gregorian. Sam covered Kansas State's resounding victory over KU, and do you agree that the story of the game was as much about the loser as the winner?
Yeah. I mean, I actually thought, regardless, that this game was going to be more about KU and where they are, because the last 5 years have kind of been this tease that they could be something more, because they were something more than they were over the previous decade, and they haven't been able to get to another level since. And I thought, can you beat K-State was a good test for have they reached even a level beyond that, and just an emphatic no.
Right. The emphatic part. I think a close loss would have been really excruciating for KU fans because they've come close the previous 2 years. But to have the losing streak now grow to 17 and to get their butts kicked at home in their new stadium, that's a different level of disappointment. I think it's the worst loss for Lance Leipold in his 5 years at KU.
It's probably true. And part of that is, we talk about this with the Chiefs all the time, that they've raised their own bar, and then we measure them based on that bar. Like, we're measuring Lance Leipold based on his past success at KU. And I hadn't thought about that, but I think you're right, Blair, that this has got to be the biggest letdown because of the expectations. They were a favorite. And by game time, they closed as more than a field goal favorite in this game, and there was no aspect of that game where I thought KU had K-State overmatched. K-State beat them at the line of scrimmage, both lines of scrimmage, and the difference in quarterback play was remarkable.
You've made me think of this. That I love the term you used in your story about if not now when, and I think that's sort of the overriding question about KU and where it's going. It feels like I don't know if it's a plateau or a stagnation, but it feels like this is where they're stuck right now. And what do we see that tells us they're going to reset and get past this level?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think it's true, the program and the quarterback. Like Jalen Daniels took KU to levels that had not been in a long time. But I think we've also seen his ceiling. And to be honest, he's been at KU 6 years. And I don't know that he looks much better than he did 3 years ago playing quarterback at KU. And he had a really bad day on Saturday. I mean, he twice just turned and fired to receivers who weren't there. I thought he ran into pressure. And he looked really panicky in the pocket. Didn't throw the ball deep. I mean, it's just it was a bad quarterback performance.
And credit Kansas State's defense for disguising and have had a great game plan. And we can't dismiss what Kansas State did in this game. They got off to such a bad start this year. The loss to Iowa State in Dublin, losing at home to Army. And since then, they've won 3 out of 4. The only loss in that stretch was a game at Baylor in which they lined up for a field goal to win it at the end. It got blocked. But good going for Kansas State here in the last month.
Yeah. One last thing about Daniels, I was just thinking this. I don't remember what year it was, because when you have these 6-year careers, it's hard to focus on that exactly. But you went deep on a story with him one year, and it's my recollection that at that point, he wasn't having bad games, right? I mean, he had moments, right? But mostly everything was an upward arc.
Yeah, I mean, he's not played well ever against K-State. And to me, that's pretty telling because, he's been there 6 years. He didn't play against him 2 years ago. Cole Ballard had to play. And again, it was close in Lawrence 2 years ago. But the 5 games that he's played against KU, he has I always do an NFL passer rating him if it's I don't understand the NCAA passer rating system. You have a terrible game, you've got a 200 rated somehow. But he's got an NFL pass rating of 68 in 5 games against K-State. Like, I mean, at some point, and to be honest, we've blown long past this point. This is a psychological advantage that K-State has over KU as well. I wonder how many KU guys walked onto that field believing they were going to win. And I absolutely think that K-State walked on that field saying, we don't care if we're underdogs in the betting markets or not. We're going to win this game.
I still think Lance Leipold's the guy. The right coach at the right place. He has beaten Texas, Oklahoma, BYU twice. He has a 3-game winning streak current against Iowa State, a team that Kansas State can't seem to beat. Yeah. He's done a lot of good things.
Those last year, like 4 straight games against ranked opponents.
They won 3 in a row against ranked opponents. The first time in college football history that a team with a losing record went 3-0 against ranked opponents.
Well, I'll say this just real quick.
Yeah.
It can get worse without landslide.
Yeah.
We've seen it much worse. They won. I pointed this out that they've even this year, after this game being a disappointment, they've won 4 games, which is more wins in any single season than the 11 years before he got there. Like, there does need to be some contextual perspective on where this program is compared to where it was before he got to Lawrence.
To me, it's a kind of classic both things can be true scenario, right? I think Lance Leipold is a really, really good coach. I think he's a fit at Kansas, but I also think they've plateaued, and I literally don't understand or know what it is they've got to do to change that trajectory, because right now it's flat.
You're right. And I think one of those questions for KU that's interesting is he's never coached a season without Jalen Daniels as his quarterback. In fact, his best year, Jason Bean played quarterback for them.
Yeah, he's the quarterback that beat Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Jason Bean.
And so, like, what does
and won the bowl game.
Jalen Daniels is a really good college player, especially at that program and what they had before him. But I wonder if there is some eagerness to sort of turn the page into what's next. Having said that, we don't know what's next for them at quarterback either. And I think that's going to dictate, whether or not they still are plateaued, like you mentioned, Vahe, or like Blair mentioned about whether or not it's true that Lance is still the right guy for that program. A lot of it's going to come down to who are you putting at that position.
We're here on SportsBeat KC talking college football with Sam McDowell and Vahe Gregorian. The list of openings in college football is ridiculous right now. Head coaching openings. It includes LSU, Florida, Penn State, UCLA, Arkansas, Oklahoma State, Virginia Tech, Stanford, and there are bound to be more once the dominoes start falling. And you didn't hear Missouri in there, but Missouri may be affected by the coaching carousel at some point. Eli Drinkwitz's name has come up pretty constantly for the openings in the SEC at Florida and at LSU. Missouri, of course, coming off a really disappointing loss at Vanderbilt, games against teams ranked in the top 15, and Missouri lost its quarterback, Bo Privula, in that game to what appears to be a season-ending ankle injury. Tigers fell to 6-2. They stayed in the polls, but is this going to be another one of those off seasons where we wonder every moment if Eli Drinkwitz is going to remain at Missouri?
It's a great question, and to your point, Blair, it's not just the whatever it is, 8 or so Fremo programs that have this going. It's the ripple, the trickle down. Like, who knows what prominent program will lose a coach to one of those programs, and how that might fit with whatever he thinks his dream job is. Saying that, I don't know. I have no feel for what he wants, right? It's in coaches' natures to try to enhance their profiles and resumes and paychecks and when these things go on. I don't know that he has a sincere interest in going anywhere else. I don't know that anywhere else has a sincere interest in him, anywhere of these magnitudes. I don't rule anything out, but I think for me, it's very hard to have a feel for that. I do think, though, that, they've got the bye week this week with another, if they don't beat Texas A&M, with
Following week,
seems quite unlikely that they would beat them at home. I think also that affects a little bit of the luster. And even though we saw that Vanderbilt game, and you see Vanderbilt's a mighty fine program right now, I don't think that people at LSU and Florida are thinking they're hungry for a guy who just lost to Vanderbilt. I know that's a very superficial point, but it's the kind of thing that I think sticks in fan bases' craws.
I think the next guy is always attractive, and they're already on to the next guy at both of those schools. I think he's the betting favorite at Florida. I think we get odds emailed to us with questions like this. Look, he makes $9 million a year in Missouri. They're in the process of completing the renovation at Mizzou. It's going to look spectacular when that north end zone project is finished. Missouri's been ahead of the game in NIL. They're doing a good job in the transfer portal. Missouri's got a lot of things going for it right now, the tough loss notwithstanding to Vanderbilt. I think it comes down to whether Eli Drinkwitz is going to wonder if he can ultimately get it done at Missouri, or if it's easier to do that at a place like LSU or Florida.
Yeah, I mean, I know one thing is for sure difference in those programs. This is the pressure. I mean, I don't think Brian Kelly's personality helps him when he's struggling. But, when you just look at him from a wins and losses standpoint, he's won, like 76% of his games over his career. He doesn't make it through 4 years. And, I mean, Florida's been a revolving door now for a decade. So, to me as a coach, like that would factor in the fact that these programs cycle through coaches pretty quickly, and Mizzou really hasn't. I mean, Barry Odom got the extra year, and that's not atypical for that program. So, Eli, we just talked about this with KU, but they've won some games, but when they've had that opportunity to sort of sneak into a playoff picture like they had, if they beat Bama or Vandy, we'd be talking about this as what's that playoff route. They come up short in both games.
Yeah, it's funny. I thought about this earlier. It it feels like also a little bit of a plateau, but a higher plateau. I mean, just that's sort of where they seem to be stuck. To your point about, the feeling of the pressure of the job. I mean, you win 10 games a year at Missouri, 10 games a year at Missouri. I don't think you're ever in danger. If you're doing the same thing at Florida or LSU, why haven't you won a national championship? I mean, that's an overstatement probably, but I think it's, we saw it in Nebraska with, this is going back many years, but just look at the Frank Solich syndrome and what that set off at Nebraska when he couldn't replicate what Tom Osborne was doing, but was still averaging 10 wins a year.
Yeah, he was 9-3. He was 9-3 coach, and that wasn't good enough.
It was not an exaggeration because Kelly won 10-10-9, and then he's 5-2 this year.
Yeah.
And I think Missouri's on track to have a third straight double-digit victory season. Might have to come in the bowl game. But if they win out, too, they're still in the playoff conversation. Right. So, anyway. All right, great conversation as always. Thanks, guys.
Hey, Flair.
And before we go, here's what else is on my radar for this week. The U.S. women's national soccer team will play at CPKC Stadium in a friendly against New Zealand on Wednesday. 4 members of the Kansas City Current will dress for the U.S.: Claire Hutton, Michelle Cooper, Lola Bonto, and Ali Sentinor. The team split games with Portugal in the last week, and this will be an opportunity for the Current to show off at Stadium. The game begins at 7 p.m. and will be on TNT. Well, that'll do it for this week. Thanks to our staff of Randy Mason, Monty Davis, Irvin Zhang, Suzanne Hogan, and Gabriella Lacey, and to our editors, Jeff Rosen and Scott Chasen. We'll be back soon with another SportsBeat KC, where we talk sports in Kansas City.